Hi, welcome to On Air. I'm Klara Syrewicz. Today we dive into ideologically inspired cultural repression. After that, in our report, we explain how the Schengen area was made and remade in recent years and what that means for European security. This time of the year always makes me think of movie magic, snuggling up with the family to binge Christmas rom-coms where mush and candy canes triumph over global chaos.
Maybe this was the mysterious Mr. Right I'd been waiting my whole life to meet.
Do you remember Bridget?
Maybe not.
It's a great time to fleetingly forget the sheer horror of world events. But this holiday season, there's one film I was hoping to see, a Russian classic filled with witches, a talking cat, and, well, love. Unfortunately, it's been Putinized out of distribution, so much for escapism. The Master and Margarita, Mikhail Bulgakov's masterpiece and one of my favorite books, was adapted in Russia by Michael Lockshin in 2021. It skyrocketed to the top of Russia's box office, earning an impressive 26 million euros until it was pulled under attack from the government. A chorus of pro-war propagandists and trolls promptly called for criminal charges against the director. Life imitating art, imitating life. Like the titular master and now the film's director, Bulgakov was censored by the Soviet authorities, and his most famous novel was published posthumously outside of Russia 40 years after he began writing it. In the West, Lockshin's film was initially a victim of sanctions since it was financed in part by the state-backed Russian Cinema Fund, and its revenues would buttress state coffers. But now, with the film's rights in the clear, maybe we'll get a Western release, so I won't have to wait 40 years. But this is just the tip of the iceberg in Putin's reinvention of acceptable culture, one persecution at a time.
Russian President Vladimir Putin loves to publicly discuss the accusation that the West is canceling Russian culture. But to this day, the only significant threat to the actual Russian culture comes from his regime.
Patriotism is the official art form. State funding for traditional values-infused art hit over 300 million euros last year. In a dichotomy reminiscent of Bulgakov's 1930s, artists and writers are now split between the ones towing the Kremlin's line and those who either shut up or emigrate, as writer Boris Akunin so eloquently put it. And if you're curious what replaced the Master and Margarita in Russian cinemas, then feast your eyes on The Witness, a love child of the Culture Ministry and the Defense Ministry's Voyenkino Cinema Foundation. The plot? Well, let's just say it's more of a festival. Ukrainian fighters worshipping Adolf Hitler while forcing a Jewish violinist to play the Luftwaffe's anthem. Check. Soldiers shooting up heroin, beating and raping women. Check. Shooting a child 5 times for speaking Russian. Check. I guess, honoring viewers' sensibilities, they didn't have the soldiers eat the child with swastika forks afterwards. But mandating movies is easier than getting people to like them. Despite a government push, the film flopped harder than Russia's cinematic taste, making just 150,000 euros, about 10% of its production costs. But hey, it's the thought that counts. However, other artists actually make a profit from Z culture. Take this not at all Nazi-looking, platinum blonde, ultra-patriotic pop star Shaman, who bleated the national anthem to Putin recently. His rise has been nothing short of meteoric as he's become the face of Russia's wartime propaganda. In the middle, we have the artists who somehow attract the Kremlin's ire without meaning to. Remember Russia's infamous almost naked party? Local celebrities wearing not much more than a sock over their genitals and causing a government meltdown. Rapper Vasio got jailed for that, then summoned for military service and eventually fled abroad. Meanwhile, pop star Filip Kirkorov had to ditch his usual feathers and rhinestones for a somber, all-black outfit to perform atoning concerts in occupied Ukraine. Because nothing says patriotism like a wardrobe overhaul. The party organizer, Nastia Ivlieva, was hit with a multitude of fines for decency offences and dishonouring the armed forces, since no one would be more shocked and repulsed by half-naked women than a military platoon. It didn't help that she had previously spoken out against Alexei Navalny's imprisonment or the war. But fear not. In the space of a few months, she visited the Donbas region and became a new Z propaganda pundit, a Slavic church-going trad woman. Funny how that works when the state can ruin you and may have your relatives in a vice grip. Unsurprisingly, Russia's criminal crackdown on artists has skyrocketed since 2022, and Belarus has been right behind it, with at least 161 cultural figures currently in prison. Of course, that's nothing out of the ordinary in this part of the world. Inspired by his benefactors, Ramzan Kadyrov has decided to go a step further and ban music based on tempo. Apparently, anything too fast or too slow is against traditional values, although quick-paced Chechen lezginka gets a pass because of traditional values. And in Kyrgyzstan, President Sadir Japarov has targeted poets known as Akins who improvise verses in folk rap battle-style competitions where they address issues like history or everyday problems.
У кого в телефоне не Т9, а ТР9.
But those topics should soon go out of fashion, as one of these bards just got slapped with a 5-year prison sentence for reciting verses about corruption. In countries like Iran, which has a state censor, everything is quite straightforward, but in aspirationally repressive yet still formally democratic countries, things are a bit more subtle. In Slovakia, hard-right culture minister Martina Šimkovičová, a polarizing figure to put it mildly, recently purged the National Gallery and the National Theatre in a political power grab. Thousands protested, petitions were signed by heads of European cultural institutions, but it didn't stop the cleansing. On the recent anniversary of Slovakia's Velvet Revolution, museum curators wrapped major art pieces to remind people what state censorship means: the disappearance of art. In Hungary, where the cultural sector depends financially on Viktor Orban's policies, the government provides the means but decides how artists use them. As a result, more than 30 years after the fall of communism, artists tread carefully, self-censoring or risking professional ruin if they show opposition to the government, like the former director of Hungary's National Theatre, Robert Alföldi, who is openly gay and politically on the left.
There are at most 2 private theaters in Hungary where he can work. The others dare not or will not invite him.
In any case, those who decide to censor art and repress artists in the name of ideology can congratulate themselves on their relation to a long, ill-famed tradition, from the Nazi blacklisting of Jewish composers and execution of homosexual performers to the oppression of artists who didn't follow the socialist realist framework. At least some censored artworks now hang in the Museum of Forbidden Art in Barcelona. Sadly, the museum doesn't offer accommodation to exiled artists or those living under an oppressive regime, forced into what was called under communism inner emigration. Let's hope they manage to return from it in the new year. I say Schengen, you say an area with free movement of goods, services and people within the European Union. Well, wrong. There are non-EU countries included in Schengen like Norway or Switzerland. But some EU members have so far not been included, like Romania and Bulgaria. But that's about to change very soon. Why did we wait so long, and what has changed in the meantime? Find out in this report.
Romania and Bulgaria will fully join Europe's Schengen area at the start of next year, marking a significant milestone nearly 2 decades after the 2 countries first joined the European Union and 15 years since they met the technical standards for membership in the visa-free travel zone. The decision lifts the final land border controls on Romania and Bulgaria starting January 1st. Both nations were partially admitted to Schengen in March this year, when air and sea checks were dropped. However, Vienna's veto had prevented the full removal of land border inspections. Romanian President Klaus Iohannis welcomed the news, saying it had been expected for too long by both Romanians and Bulgarians. For the first 6 months, authorities will still conduct random, risk-based checks to ensure a smooth transition. The agreement also includes deploying joint border guards to the Bulgarian-Turkish frontier to reinforce external borders of the EU. Austria's earlier opposition had stalled the process amid concerns over illegal migration. However, Austrian Interior Minister Gerhard Karner said that a significant drop in migrant arrivals via Bulgaria and Romania prompted Vienna to finally lift its veto.
I have taken a very clear stance regarding security in our country. 2 years ago, when I voiced the veto, there were 80,000 illegal border crossings at our eastern border. Now, 2 years later, there are 4,500, a massive reduction.
Politicians from other member states, like the Dutch populist PVV party, have also voiced their opposition regarding the introduction of Sofia and Bucharest into the club.
The PVV finds it irresponsible that the Schengen will be expanded even more, because this will lead to more inflow of asylum seekers and more inflow of migration and corruption.
Security concerns, the COVID-19 pandemic, and fluctuating migration pressures have prompted some member states, such as Germany, France, and the Netherlands, to reimpose temporary border checks. While these measures are often justified on security grounds, they carry significant economic costs and can disrupt cross-border travel and commerce.
The elimination of land border controls means a significant decrease in logistics costs for companies and importers, and this means lower prices for products imported from Europe.
The delicate balance between maintaining free movement and ensuring security remains an ongoing debate.
Welcome back. We have Eusebius Lavitescu with us. Hello.
Thank you for having me on your program.
So you're a former Romanian diplomat. You have worked for EU institutions. And Romania and Bulgaria will be joining the Schengen zone fully. Why is this entry so important from the perspective of their internal politics?
Well, let me first tell you, at last, 12 years a bit too late, if you ask me, because the accession to the Schengen area isn't something that we were given as a gift. It's a right, and also it's an obligation that comes within the European Treaty. So for us, to come back to your question, for us this is incredibly important in Romania. And if a lot of things are happening right now with the rise of the far-right nationalists, this also has to do with it. Because Romania and Bulgaria, since 2011, when the European Commission said officially that both countries have met the criteria and they are fully ready to join the Schengen area, every step of the way, either we have the Netherlands, either we have Austria vetoing our accession. So it has given the impression that Romanians and Bulgarians are somehow second-hand citizens, because we have really implemented all the recommendations. Romania has carried out a massive investment in our external borders, right, around 700 million euros and a few hundred millions for the European Commission. So we were ready. And this feeling of not getting in, and the reason we were given for not getting in, they weren't really valid. At some point, the Netherlands said, okay, there's a lot of corruption in Romania and Bulgaria. And there is a lot less now than it was 10 years ago. But again, we are transitioning towards a fully functional democracy. We're not there yet. We are still a very young democracy, as we can see these days. So, okay, we had some corruption. And then Austria came out to say that, no, maybe there's a migration route towards, through Bulgaria and Romania, which is not true. We had teams, experts from the EU Commission, from independent think tanks that came, that had conversation, official visit. None of it was true.
So, however, the Netherlands, even though they voted in favor of Bulgaria's entry, they still said that Bulgaria's external border was as leaky as a basket. And that was the major party in the parliament, which is a far-right party. So was their acceptance a kind of political decision, or do you think that what has changed at the border? Like, and why would they say such a thing?
Well, I cannot speak for Bulgaria. I know Romanians Bulgaria's borders are incredibly safe as they can be. I'm not sure we can do anything more about that. As for Bulgaria, I know they have this political turmoil. I know at some point, a couple of years ago, some member states had the intention to decouple Bulgaria from Romania, which was a bad idea, and thank God it didn't happen. And now we both countries got in. So there was never a migration route through both countries. That we know for sure. So why we had this veto for so many years, right?
Maybe it wasn't about, maybe it wasn't about just migration. It was maybe about the
this is where
illegal
I'm
trade or arms trade and drugs trade, no?
This is what I'm heading, just as it happens. Maybe it's a coincidence. Coincidences do happen. But 2 days ago, the Austrian Chancellor announced it publicly on Twitter that he's ending a 13 years contract with Gazprom from natural gas, right? Exactly the same day, Romania announced that we now have the capacity to produce and to sell natural gas to all the EU. So maybe there is a coincidence or maybe it's not. What do I know? On the other hand, obviously this was a political sort of situation. The fact that the EU member states has this veto, because we need a unanimity rule, which I'm forcefully against, to be honest, as we have seen a country or two countries blocking without much of a reason for so many years. So having domestic politics dictating foreign policy, for example, in the case of Austria, by blocking Romania, this has been highly frustrating for us. Highly frustrating. Not to mention, it's also a security angle to this Schengen accession, right? Austria is not NATO member. We are NATO member. Let's just imagine something happens in the eastern flank. One of the missiles, the rocket, the Russian drones hits a Romanian household, and we need to activate Article 5, right? Logistically, it's kind of complicated since we are not in the Schengen area. So there's a lot more here to unpack than we just see. Again, having a political situation inside, having your own domestic politics affecting decision that impacts hugely, especially economically and some security angles, Romania and Bulgaria, isn't really fair, and it hasn't been.
While Bulgaria and Romania are entering the Schengen zone fully, other countries are shutting their doors literally in their faces. So I'm thinking about Germany or France having derogations from the Schengen rules. What do you think about that?
So let me first say it's good to be home. So we are really glad that we finally are in. I've seen yesterday in the social media, Romanians are very much on social media. The traditional media is
on TikTok, apparently.
On TikTok, on Facebook, the Agora is millions and millions of people, and that's been growing optimism and enthusiasm yesterday, and I felt that because this, as I said before, has been really frustrating for us. And if one of the reasons why we have Călin Georgescu, pro-Russian candidate, anti-EU, anti-NATO, it's also because of this, because of this sense of second-hand citizenship.
But do you think it's going to affect the presidential election?
I think you already lost 10% just with the Schengen decision. I mean, it's just a guess of mine. It is a big deal in Romania.
I hope everything goes smoothly then, and there are no surprises on the way. Everything can happen. But I think Hungary is actually, because it had a kind of lackluster presidency to the EU, I think they are very eager to push the deal through.
They have helped a lot. And not just, I mean, let me say Germany has pushed for accession. France has helped us a lot in the past years. Right now, I know Hungary has pushed for a lot, and it makes sense because we have borders between our two countries, and there's a lot that we can grow out of that. Since 2011, up until today, we estimated a loss of 100 billion euros. The 12 years.
For the 12 years?
Approximately. Okay. 100 that's a lot of money. How do you translate that? The transportation industry, right? The truck drivers. Instead of waiting 20, 30 minutes like they would do, they were waiting 8 hours or 2-3 days. That waiting is money. We are expecting, if we really know how to take advantage of this, it could go up to 2% GDP growth just because we're in. That's how important it is for us.
These are very impressive numbers, actually. Yeah, indeed.
They are. Why it's so important for us?
So again, I hope everything goes well, and thank you for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being with us as well. We return next week for an end-of-the-year wrap-up, and in the meantime, enjoy the holidays.